bit about one of the names of Allah and one of the ways in which He talks about Him quite often in the Quran, and that is the name of Allah, Al-Alim, the one who knows. And Allah mentions often in the Quran how much He knows and how He knows everything. Wallahu bi kulli shay'in alim. An example ayah that I want to share with you to start off with is what He mentions in Surah Al-Taghabun, the 64th surah. He says, يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. He knows whatever is in the skies and whatever is in the earth. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تُسِرُّونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ. And He knows the things you keep secret and the things you let known. So the things you actually let people know and the things you don't let people know that are hiding inside you, He knows both of those. وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. And above and beyond all of that, Allah is fully knowledgeable and has always known about the nature and the reality of what's hiding inside the chests. It's a remarkable ayah, and what I wanted to do for starters is just have us think about beyond the obvious. We know Allah knows everything. We know Allah knows everything that we're hiding inside of ourselves and everything on the outside. We know Allah knows the seven heavens and all of it. But let's put some of this in perspective. How does Allah demonstrate to us what He knows compared to what we could never have known ourselves? One of the best ways to appreciate Allah's names is to actually understand our own limits. By comparison, then you really get to appreciate the perfection of Allah and really get to appreciate how insignificant slaves we are before Allah Azza wa Jal. So for starters, what I want to share with you is, let's just talk about knowledge of history. You know, historians record when a war happened and which king won, or which nation conquered, or how long a dynasty was. And this is what historian records can document. But a historian can never document the way Allah documents in the Quran what Fir'aun felt before he spoke. Like, Allah doesn't just tell us what happened and what conversation took place, He actually tells us what was going on inside of him. Allah wanted to show them the things they were afraid of. Who would know Fir'aun is afraid? What historian's going to know how he felt? Allah Azza wa Jal records that in the Quran. Think about how Allah records the prayers of Ibrahim alayhi salam. There was nobody there. Ibrahim was in a desert by himself alayhi salam, making dua to Allah, and there's no historian, no other human being that documents this record. And thousands of years later, we know exactly the conversation that took place between Allah and Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is how Allah knows history the way we can never know history. And He knows a point of view on history that no history book will ever cover. You know, sometimes people criticize the Quran doesn't have dates, it doesn't have geographical locations when it talks about history. It just simply mentions these things, but Allah mentions the kind of history that human beings could never know. And the things that human beings could figure out, Allah doesn't tell us. He teaches you what you could never have known on your own. So that's just an example of history. Think about the fact that we could never have known that there are 7 skies. How would a human being ever know that? We don't even know the end of the first sky. The lowest sky, the lowest of the 7 skies, Allah said He decorated them with stars. The lowest sky He decorated with stars. With all the telescopes that we have, all the technology that we have, all the means by which we're able to see light years and billions of light years away, all we still see is stars, isn't it? And so by that definition, all we're looking at as far as we've seen into the universe is still within the first sky. And Allah tells us there are 7 skies. Human beings could never have known the clues that Allah has given us in the Quran. What human being would know what's going to happen after we die? How are you and I supposed to know what's going to happen of our bodies? What kind of questions are we going to be asked? What will happen on resurrection? What's Judgment Day going to look like? What questions are going to be asked? How are we going to look? Where are we going to be? What event will happen first and second and third? What does Jannah look like? What is this place Jannah? What is its description? What kind of people will live in it? What conversations are they going to have? Again, historians and human beings can have knowledge of what happened in the past and what happens right now. But Allah even has knowledge of the future. There are people in heaven having a conversation that will happen infinitely into the future, and Allah already knows, and He's telling us as if it's already happened. You see? كَانَ وَعْدًا مَفْعُولًا, as if it's a promise already fulfilled. And that's an indication, just the clue of how much Allah knows. How would we know about angels? How would you and I know, يُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظًا, that He sends guardian angels over each of you? How would we know there are people that are writing all the deeds that we do? Kiraman katibin, noble writers. How would we know that something as simple as asking Allah's forgiveness opens doors to your rizq? We would never have known that simply turning back to Allah and asking His forgiveness is going to get you a new job, is going to actually, make your baby's health better, is going to take care of some issue in your life that wasn't open before, now it's opened up, And that's what Allah says. Human beings could never have made that connection. There's no way for us to acquire that knowledge. No science, no research, no laboratory can discover this. This can only come from Allah Azza wa Jal. Of course, the biggest mystery of all, how would we know who Allah is? What kind of master is He? What kind of God is He? What kind of relationship does He want with you and me? We could never have known that. People could discover there's a God, but what's He like? What does He love? What does He hate? What does He want from me? What is His plan for me? What does He expect from me? We would never have known any of these things had Allah not taught us. Is because when Allah says that He knows everything, and then He says that He advises us. Okay? قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Counsel, advice has come to you from your Master. Quran, Allah says about Himself, وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah is teaching you. وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. And Allah knows everything. Allah is knowledgeable of everything. You know what that means? That means that He understands your situation completely. Even better than you and I can understand our own situation. He recognizes our problem, our feelings, our thoughts, the thoughts we have said, the thoughts nobody has ever known that are going on in our head. Sometimes something's going on in your head, your face looks a little disturbed, your husband or wife or son or daughter turns to you and says, "What's wrong?" And you say, "Nothing," even though everything's going on. You just say nothing, because they can't handle it. But Allah knows that nothing is something. He knows exactly what it is. And knowing all of that, He gives advice. Knowing all of that. It's kind of unfair sometimes that we think the Quran is there to give us religious advice. The doctor will give us medical advice. The mechanic will give us car advice. The accountant is going to give us financial advice. And Quran will give us what? Religious advice. But Allah is not limited to religion. Allah's knowledge is knowledge of all things in your life. Everything that's going on inside you. Everything that is for your best physically. Everything that's for your best financially, everything that's best for you socially, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, in terms of your health, everything that because all of that is Allah's making. And He made you and me. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Doesn't He know who He created? After knowing us completely, He gave this advice. So this advice is not just one angle, you see. It's not just one point of view. Human beings can only see things from one point of view. Allah sees all points of view. Allah sees all points of view. And that's why, Allah Azza wa Jalla is the, لا يدركه الأبصار. Eyes cannot perceive Him, but He can see through all the eyes, He says. يدرك الأبصار. He perceives all vision, all perspectives. So it's not like your perspective is something Allah didn't take into consideration. Your situation is something, sometimes people hear advice from Allah's book, or you even contemplate advice from Allah's book and you say, yeah, this is good religious stuff, but my situation is special, it doesn't apply to me. Because, you don't know my full circumstance. Yeah, I don't know your full circumstance. Somebody else doesn't know your full circumstance. Allah certainly does. Allah certainly does. And He gave this advice to humanity, knowing every single human being and all of their problems and all of their needs put together. That's when Allah speaks. When He says, Wallahu alimun hakim. When Allah is knowledgeable and Allah is wise. This book is based on wisdom. One of the names of Allah that keeps coming up with His name knowledgeable multiple times in the Quran is that He hears. He hears. Wallahu sami'un alim. Inna Allah huwa as-sami'ul alim. The one who hears, the one who knows. Human beings have been crying to Allah and crying to each other and speaking to others about their problems or having conversations with themselves since the beginning of history. And Allah has heard all of it. All of it. And all of it taken into consideration, He gave us His revelation. That's a mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal. So when He says that a counsel has come to you from your Rabb, وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, it came to heal what you have inside of your chest. That's because He knows what is inside of your chest. He knows what I'm feeling. He knows what I'm going through. And just like sometimes a doctor gives you a diagnosis and he gives you a prescription that isn't very pleasant. No doctor you're going to go to if you have tooth problems is going to say, I don't think you're eating enough chocolate. Because you need to keep, do what feels good. Sometimes the advice given is painful. Sometimes it's a root canal, isn't it? Sometimes the best thing for you is surgery, isn't it? Sometimes what you need to experience is painful, but it's actually better for you. And so sometimes very painful advice is not meant to cause you pain, but actually to save you from destruction. To save you from destruction. It could be that you love something, but it's no good for you. It could be that you hate something, but it's actually better for you. Based on what is actually better for you and actually better for me, whether or not we can see it, based on Allah's knowledge, He gives us advice. He speaks to us. He teaches us. Allah says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Have consciousness of Allah, and Allah is the one teaching you.